Good afternoon and welcome to HAR Community Conversations. We are here every month to have meaningful conversations about topics that matter most to Houstonians. And in almost every recent survey that we've seen, safety is number one for most Houstonians. So today we are pleased to be joined by Mel Turnquist with the Texas Center for the Missing, CEO of the Texas Center for the Missing, and Rania Mankarious, CEO of Crime Stoppers of Houston. Welcome to the program, ladies.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate all the work that you do, and we're going to hear a lot about that today. What is actually happening in Houston and how we can keep both our children and our communities safe. But before we get into all of that, I would love to hear just a little bit about you both, who you are and what you do. And we can start with you on this one, Mel.
Great. As Christina said, my name is Mel Turnquist. I am the CEO of Texas Center for the Missing. I've been with the organization for 18 years, and I stepped into the CEO role in October of last year with the retirement of the prior CEO. And I just thrilled to serve in this capacity and happy to be here today.
Thank you so much. And Rania?
Well, similar to you, Mel, I've been with Crime Stoppers of Houston for 18 years, the executive director, CEO since 2013. Love the work we do. We are a nonprofit organization. Our mission is to solve and prevent crime, and we do that every single day with citizens, media, and the criminal justice system.
Thank you. And again, we thank you both for your time today. Let's talk about what's happening right now. So, Rania, what are some of the biggest safety concerns that are facing our communities right now?
Well, I thought a lot about this, and really I want to talk about sentiment in two different categories. One, the community feels that crime is an issue, but it's become a political topic. We don't know how to handle it. I'm hearing more and more that people don't want to report criminal activity because they don't think they're going to get a response or get justice. And so I want to challenge that. One, crime should never be a political issue. One, we do have to have conversations with elected officials, but it doesn't make it a political issue. Two, you should always report because law enforcement cares and they need to know what's going on, whether or not they have the resources today to respond the way we need them to. Continual reporting ensures that we have the data that they need to eventually fight for more resources. But then here's the flip side of that. We are seeing a change in culture amongst criminal behavior. They feel emboldened, they feel empowered. They're starting to understand that the sort of tides are in their favor. If they're arrested, they're released pretty quickly, not because of law enforcement or the district attorney, but a lot of what's going on in the criminal courthouse. And so we need to change that. We need to be having those important conversations, holding criminals responsible for criminal activity. That doesn't mean unjust punishment. It doesn't mean wrongful conviction. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means having proper conversations and holding true criminals responsible for their activity. Ultimately, if we can get sort of back on track, I think we can deal with a lot of the rising and falling criminal trends that we're seeing.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. So obviously there have been so many changes over recent years with technological advancements and the people how they use social media. So how have technology and social media changed the way missing persons cases are handled, Mel?
Well, in the past, if you can believe it, the Amber Alert system started as a fax communication system. And what we've discovered over time is that number one, we use a e-blast system to push it out in our region. And what we've seen is that very rarely do searching families pick up a phone and call anymore. The vast majority of casework that we receive is through direct messaging through different social media platforms. It's also how we're recovering people. We've found people that were missing within hours just by posting on it on social media. So when you see those notifications, please do share. Don't copy and paste, share. So when updates happen, your shared post will be updated simultaneously. And that's just really the change is just the way we're all communicating. I will say that preparation is the key more than ever. People get real excited about DNA and fingerprints when the reality is a good up-to-date photo is what's going to bring your missing loved one home. And so the digital world, it's all about videos and pictures. It's same in the missing persons field. And then I also just want to share that kids are getting more and more tech savvy, and they know to leave their phones behind if they are truly trying to elope or leave with
Mm.
someone that they know they shouldn't be with. So if you see your child, especially your teenager's phone at home, that's time to really kick into quick action because they're probably trying to evade discovery. Because as we all know, they're addicted to their technology. So take quick action. So
Yeah, I would imagine that it's a major red flag if you see they leave their phone behind. Well, with that thought though, Rania, I'd like to ask you. I know you've done a lot of work in this space. What are some of the games or apps that parents currently, because I know it changes, that they currently should be aware of, and that might pose a risk to their children's safety?
Christine, I love this question because it gives me an opportunity to say what I always want parents to hear. Any game, any app that allows your child to connect with another person is dangerous. So if they're on a plant finder app, a how to garden app, and it allows them to connect with somebody else, then that is potentially one of the most dangerous apps they can be on.
Mm-hmm.
Here's why. The connection to anyone anywhere is it allows kids to access people that may not be good for them. Predators are lurking wherever children are. Gaming specifically, it's important to tell kids that the majority of the players on these platforms are adults. A majority, over 70% of the
Mm-hmm.
users of any gaming platform is an adult, somebody over the age of 18. And why are they in this space? For a whole host of reasons, but some of those reasons are to find minors that they can start engaging with, talking to, getting information from. We need to be having these conversations with our kids every day and really turning the conversation from this one app could be dangerous to anywhere you can talk to anyone. Any app that allows you to
Mm-hmm.
connect with anyone is dangerous. And here's why. Those are conversations we're urging families to have as young as 5 years old, but then really layering them on when kids turn about 8, and then definitely engaging in those conversations regularly as kids grow.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And as you're both speaking, we're sharing some resources that your organizations provided us. So, and we do appreciate that. Just to piggyback on that a little bit, Rania, I experienced that myself. My daughter, who is 7, was using an app it's like a karaoke sing along app, and it was encouraging her to join a team. Of course, we had already talked to her about we don't join the teams, we don't put in any of our information, but it still was trying to get people to talk to her. And so we ended up just having to delete that app, unfortunately. But that's such a good point. Even a plant app or a karaoke app that you wouldn't necessarily expect. Going back to your point, Mel, about sharing the posts, we just had a comment that came in from Joy that just said, I didn't realize that sharing the post was so important. Mentioning that your shared post gets updated with the original post is updated helps a lot. So, yes, thank you
Great.
so much for that. Absolutely. If we're going to share it, we want to share it correctly.
absolutely.
Very good. Well, with that, Mel, if you could walk us through the process. What happens when a person is reported missing?
Thank you so much for asking this. And it's just so important because every single case is so very different, but there are some critical steps that we can all take, regardless of who is missing. I think so many people think missing kids are the issue, and they are, and they're the ones we're concerned about. But at least 33% of missing persons are adults. And we have tripled the number of silver alerts now. And so those are our aging population, our boomers. They're more easily victims of crime. If they've started wandering, they're more easily victims of falling to health concerns in the extreme weather that we experience here in Greater Houston. So the key fact I want everyone to remember is there is absolutely no 24-hour waiting period to report a missing person.
Mm.
Despite all that pop culture tries to tell us, that is not an accurate assessment, and in fact, it flies in the face of Texas law. So that's number one. So, first, if someone you love is missing and you're concerned about it, conduct a rapid and thorough search in the immediate area where you think they should be. And then you immediately pick up the phone and you call law enforcement and you say, I want to report a missing person. And if the person is a juvenile on the autism spectrum or someone diagnosed with dementia, mention those facts at the front.
Mm.
Our two largest law enforcement agencies had 11,000 cases last year, with just 18 investigators. So if you do that math, they're in triage mode. So you want to do whatever you can at the outset to get a focus on the concern and issue of your missing loved one. Once investigators contact the family, step two, so you're going to report them to law enforcement. Step two is when investigators contact you, you're going to ask them to enter your family into the National Criminal Information Center. That's the NCIC, and or the Texas Criminal Information Center, the TCIC. And that is the database when you are pulled over for a traffic violation, which I'm sure no one here has done. When law enforcement is back in the car, vehicle checking, it looks like they're on a computer. They're checking to see if there's a warrant out for your vehicle. And so that's why it's so important to have it in that system, the NCIC and TCIC. Once you ask for that to happen, during the investigation, answer any and all questions, no matter how embarrassing you may think it is. The fact that your child is battling depression will refocus the efforts of law enforcement, because if they're on medication, perhaps they've risen to the level of being ready to act on suicidal ideation. If your loved one has a drug problem, which you may not be proud of as a family, but that will refocus the investigation and make your loved one a priority. And then once you've gotten through all of those steps where you've reported them missing, you've talked to investigators, contact Texas Center for the Missing. Centerforthemissing.org, there's a big orange Get Help button. You submit that information. It goes to our case manager 24/7, and then we will start working that case on the back end with the activities that we can do to help you out that's not investigation based. For example, we can help push it out to our social media connections. We can create possibly a media event. We have actually helped families close a case around the weekend when there was just a skeleton crew at law enforcement, just because of a media event at the place last seen in front of a big box store. Mm-hmm. So do reach out to us as soon as possible, and we can help in any way that we can.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And thank you for dispelling we're going to talk more about misconceptions, but that one misconception, the 24 hours is not necessary. I want to hear about, and Rania, you've already shared a little bit about apps and what to avoid, but what are some common tactics that you see utilized by online predators? And I want to hear from both of you on this one. We can start with you on this one, Rania.
Online predators will go basically and will do anything they need to do to engage with a child, and they will take their time. That's a huge one. Before we even start to talk about that, though, I want to speak to any parent that thinks, well, gosh, thank God I have good kids. Oh, thank God they're in a great school. Oh, thank goodness we moved into this neighborhood. Thank goodness they have such good friends and they're in sports. If you are building up these little walls in your mind that somehow protect your child from engagement with a predator, we need to break all those walls down now. Because really you're feeding into a myth that the school, the good kid, the good neighborhood is protecting your child. All of that means almost nothing when you're in the online space. Predators take their time to chat and reach out to children across all locations, all schools, all demographics, all socioeconomic classes, all levels of accomplishment. They just want to engage. They're fishing. They're constantly fishing. It's a comment on a post, a like. Oh, that was great. Congratulations. It will be talking to them while they're gaming. They'll spend, again, their time building a benign relationship with a child and figuring out what tool or strategy they need to really hone in on to create some type of dependency and engagement. And once they can create that dependency and engagement, what they might be seeking could range. It might be that they just want photos of a child. It might be that they want video footage of a child. It might be that they want a child to leave the home so they can actually extract the child for nefarious purposes. We see it all. Ultimately, to really protect your child from this, you got to equip them with an understanding of what's happening. I always say that a predator's greatest gift is an uninformed child and an uninformed family, because that's where they thrive. So we want to be talking about these awful, awkward, uncomfortable situations and scenarios often and early, so that our children and our families aren't those uninformed gifts that predators look for.
Thank you. Mel, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to leapfrog off of that. Not just that anyone can be a potential target for a predator. I think a lot of people have this vision that it's someone that's an old man in a basement that's trying to lure these children. We're seeing a lot more of peer to peer solicitation and luring into human trafficking. It is appealing to young people's desire to have expensive things earlier than they need it, a desire to have more excitement and not understanding what they're getting themselves into. And it's not just girls. There's a huge rise in sextortion among young males, and it's something that escalates. As Rania said, it is an escalation and a time investment of these individuals where they'll say, okay, send me a picture of you in your swimsuit, and I'll send you a picture of me. And it could be they're even sending pictures that it's not the individual, they're pretending to be female.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And then once they get pictures of these young men in compromising positions, if they don't send increasingly revealing images, they're threatened with, I'm going to share it with everyone you know. If you don't send me money, I'm going to share it with everyone you know. And it's those conversations, exactly like Rania said, you start at an age of, as soon as they are using any form of technology, you start talking about what's a good way to be a good citizen on the internet,
Hmm.
or what's a good way to utilize this tool, and to just remind them that there's every tool can become a weapon, whether it's
Hmm.
digital or in your hand, and just to have those conversations. And a good way to keep an eye out is if your children start showing more curiosity and sexual behaviors than is age appropriate, and if their usage of the internet is rising exponentially in any way that you should be monitoring. Everybody should know all the parental controls on every digital device. Like Rania said, on these gaming devices, they're texting with each other.
Hmm.
We encourage families, if you've got a child that's a minor in your home, get a voice masking tool, especially if they're talking to someone online, so that way people can't target them for their age, because our voices will often give away our age and our gender. So that's another way to protect yourself. And then there's the risk factors. I did share a link, and I'm sure your team is sharing it, about a resource that the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has for online predator avoidance and response.
Yes, thank you so much. So let's get into how that conversation takes place. And Ronnie, I'm going to come to you on this one. How can parents start that conversation about online safety with their children? And, how much should you reveal to the point where it's scary to them? What are the do's and don'ts on that conversation?
So we'll start by saying start young. And again, say as young as 5, because you can look at a 5-year-old, even younger, and they'll be playing, on a parent's phone using innocent games, innocent apps. But you want to start talking about, what did you play, and what does your avatar look like? What did the monkey do? Did it find the A? The just basic conversations. To then really expanding the conversation about, what is your fingerprint? What does your digital fingerprint look like online? Do you know, anytime you're in the digital space, and even if mommy and daddy don't know where you are, there are traces of your behavior, your engagement, what you're putting out in the world. And there are people that you'll talk to that don't always have your best interest in mind. And as they get older, Christina, look, I know it's awkward, but you've got to share real stories. You've got to layer good stories. So people know I say this. I go and speak to parents all the time, and I'll say, look, I will spend days where I will Google funny trending videos for 10-year-old girls on TikTok. So when my girls come home, I say, guys, did you see this video? It's hysterical. And they'll say, Mom, you saw it too? We're all talking about it. I say, yes, it's really funny. Have positive,
Mhm.
current, friendly conversations about the platform, because I know there's going to be a time when I'll say, guys, did you see the story of the 11-year-old girl who dealt with extortion, or the 18-year-old boy who ended up taking his own life because he didn't know how to get out of a situation? I'll
Mhm.
also add this, Christina, we have honest conversations. Kids versus parents versus technology is not a fair fight. I know our kids will win every time. I agree with you. We should be monitoring the platforms. But I also realize that there are many parents out there. We can't really monitor everything our kids do. It's not possible. And
Mhm.
even technologies that pride themselves on offering monitoring services are not allowed to monitor the biggest platforms out there. TikTok doesn't allow parent monitoring devices. Instagram, X, Facebook, none of the big platforms even allow parents to monitor. They don't allow. So we really, really need our kids' buy-in, because while kids versus parents versus technology is not a fair
Mhm.
fight, what else is not a fair fight? Predators versus kids versus technology is not a fair fight. Predators will win every time. I also want to share this. A lot of parents will say, but I own the technology. I own the device. I have a right to go in and look at it whenever I want. That's true. But a predator that's really, really made an impact on your child can go ahead and very easily send them their own phone so that you don't have access to that technology. You're immediately cut off. We are in homes, we'll talk to families where kids get on their own server. They've bypassed the family server. Parents have
Mhm.
no idea. So until and unless we get a child's buy-in, what I post matters, it stays forever. Who I engage with matters, it can become extremely dangerous. And third, there's always a way out. Even if I've sent an inappropriate photo, even if I've done something I shouldn't do,
Mm-hmm.
we will help you. Your back is never against a wall. It should never get
Mhm.
you against a predator, where you feel like you've got to take your own life, you feel like you've got to send money you don't have. We, Crime Stoppers and other organizations, will come and quietly and privately support you through any situation you find yourself in. The same technology that's been used to harm you, hurt you, or harass you can be used to protect you, help you, and save you. And that's a huge message for our organization.
Thank you so much for that.
To piggyback on that, the takeitdown.org is one of those resources you can use to try to remove images that you don't want out there. And I do want to
Yes.
share that, yes, we do need to have children's buy-in, but current research is showing that the the language, like Rania is saying, it's not talking about don't do this, don't do this. It's saying help your friends make the good choices. Because if you couch it as you're helping your friends instead of I'm telling you what not to do,
Mm-hmm.
it seems to seep in better. That's one of the way the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, some of their most current research is saying when we talk to our children. And it is opening those conversations every opportunity there is. If a child is saying, I want to download a new app, you have the parental controls to say yay or nay. You then say, at that time, what are our family's rules about that app? And
Mm-hmm.
just, it's a free flowing conversation at all times.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much to both of you. So, Mel, you mentioned earlier one of the biggest misconceptions I would imagine is you don't have to wait 24 hours to report a missing person. What are some other common misconceptions about missing person cases?
I touched on it a little bit. It's just the sheer volume. Our founder, we are also a small nonprofit here in Houston with 3 staff members. So
Mm-hmm.
we were founded by a mother whose son went missing at 17 years old, and the way she describes it is she thought Kojak was going to show up on her door and find her son in an hour, like in a TV show. And because of just the sheer volume, law enforcement really needs the support of the community. And that's part of that process we discussed already, right? If you be forthright, you contact them right away. The great news is, despite the odds, the vast majority of these missing persons cases are resolved. And that's because of the passion of law enforcement and collaborative organizations like ourselves and Crime Stoppers. Last year alone, we know that Texas Center for the Missing was responsible for bringing home 94 people. Um,
Amazing.
and that's just what we know, because we do the follow up of the 30, 60, and 90 days to find out if families do need additional resources. A huge, huge misconception I hear every time someone hears that I work for the organization that provides Houston's regional Amber Alert system. They say, well, I heard that's just kids who've run away or it's a custodial interference case. Why should I care? That gets me very upset,
Mm-hmm.
because by law, an Amber Alert, I'm looking at my paper so I say this exactly right. Amber Alerts are activated because investigators believe the child is in immediate danger of sexual assault, death, or serious bodily injury. So if it irritates you to hear that in the middle of the night or to see it on the dynamic message signs, I just ask that you reset yourself and imagine if that was your loved one that was in danger of sexual assault, death, or serious bodily injury. The only way an Amber Alert is activated for a custodial interference case is if an act of murder or attempted murder happens at the point of abduction.
Mm-hmm.
So these kids, when you see an Amber Alert, these are our most critical cases. When you see a Silver Alert, these are our most critical cases. And pay attention and do share the information. Share it on social media anywhere you can. And then there's also the misconception there is zero government funding for any Amber Alert system
Mm-hmm.
that's regional. And so we are constantly trying to raise funds for that. And I'm going to end again with the same misconception. There is no 24-hour waiting period to report a missing person. It is my personal goal to dispel that myth across the board within our community.
Thank you, and thank you for really highlighting the severity of the situation. If you do receive an Amber Alert, it is an extreme case that we need to pay attention to. Just as we're going through, I just wanted to share a comment to someone I know both of you know. Matt Burris commented, "I love both of these people so much. Thank you for everything you do to make our community safer. We all play a role." Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit about schools. Rania, how is Crime Stoppers working to combat safety in our schools?
Well, I'll tell you, kids today are not being raised in a world that's even remotely similar to the world you and I were raised in. The kids today are dealing with bullying, sure, but cyberbullying, cyber stalking, harassment. They're dealing with exploitation, the luring away for trafficking. They're not just dealing with drugs, they're dealing with synthetic drugs and fentanyl-laced pills. I mean, the list goes on and on. So we have a Safe School Institute. We're the largest institute of our kind in the state of Texas. And we go into the schools, kindergarten through 12th grade, talking to the kids about all of these crime trends, offering tips and information to keep them from being a victim of crime, but also to kind of flip the thinking so they don't instigate a criminal activity. We never want a child to enter what some call the cradle to prison pipeline. And we cover so many issues. Everything we do is free. We hear first and foremost what kids are going through from the mouths of children. And then certainly in addition to the free prevention education we offer, which they realize pretty quickly when we're in the room that we know what we're talking about and we're speaking their language. We also offer them the anonymity of our reporting platform, which they can call, they can text, they can use the app in over 22 languages. And because they know that it's anonymous, we've been able to remove 280 weapons from Houston area schools before it could ever translate into an accidental shooting or an intentional killing of another student or groups of students. So kids today understand the seriousness of the issues they face, and they just want to be spoken to honestly and have real resources offered to them. I'll just add that what's interesting for us to watch, at least from the tip line center, the tips we received historically have been there's going to be a gang activity on campus. Somebody's going to be bringing a weapon, or we've had tips that a student selling 54 different types of prescription medication from their locker. I mean, we've dealt with so many different cases across the spectrum. But now what we're seeing is an increase in mental health outcry. So-and-so suicidal, so-and-so is self-cutting. My friend is severely depressed. I don't know what to do. So we're working to form relationships with Baylor, College of Medicine, and other organizations so that these tips can land somewhere and that students in need can get the help that they need.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. So we've discussed a few challenges as far as the misconceptions are concerned. What are some of the biggest challenges, Mel, that you guys face in trying to locate those missing persons?
It's a lack of community education, which is why a big part of what we do is going in the community and letting people understand the missing persons issues and the things you can do to prepare yourself in advance. If anyone watching has a child on the autism spectrum or a loved one battling dementia, it's a crazy thing, but you got to get that diagnosis printed out. How many of us get a diagnosis and keep a hard copy at home or have it? If you need an emergency alert to be issued for your loved one, if you've got a child on autism and they're over the age of 18 or even under the age of 18, there's an endangered missing persons alert, and that's specifically for kids on the spectrum. But the state of Texas requires a diagnosis. So a big part of that preparation is creating your missing persons response plan, knowing who are your child's friends, what are their cell phone numbers, what are their social media handles, what are their gamer tags, knowing all of that and having it in one place. So if your child does leave your home, you know where to start looking. Know your rights in the law. I mean, we have had some, especially if you live in a smaller town, law enforcement is one of our most important partners in the community, just like Crime Stoppers. Some agencies have a missing persons unit. If you're in a smaller town or in an unincorporated part of non-Harris County, your sheriff's department may not have a missing persons unit. So you may not they may not have the education because there are no missing persons trainings in any law enforcement academy in our region unless it's provided by us to let them know your rights, know that you have to take by state law a missing persons report immediately. There is no 24-hour waiting period. How many times is that? Four now? And because many of these law enforcement officers, through no fault of their own, they have more experience reacting to a stolen car than a missing child, which in some respects, that's a good thing. But it also means they don't necessarily know where to go to get help. And that way, once you report it to law enforcement, you contact us. We can help you navigate it, and our emergency alert specialist can reach out to the investigator with respect and mutual admiration and say, what can we do to help? We know the law. We know how we can help you. Here's some resources. You tell us what you want us to do on your behalf as the investigator. And so I think that answered that question. So
great. Thank you so much. So there are always questions, it seems, about how to track crime within the community, or different avenues to really see different statistics. I'd like to hear from both of you. How can people track crime within their community? We can start with you on this one, Mel.
um, for us, because we do a lot of the internet safety and we do worry about internet lures and online predators and human trafficking, we always encourage parents to check the Texas Public Sex Offender Registry. That is not an exhaustive list, but it is a starting point you can go to at least see if someone who's coming into the circle of your child, if they are on that registry, especially if they're giving undue attention. I will say you also need to check the National Sex Offender Registry because the state of Texas has chosen not to opt into that national registry. So you got to look in two places, just to be clear. And then vinelink.com, if for some reason you have been a victim of crime and the perpetrator is in jail, I believe that is the way to be notified about custody status and if someone's been released from prison. And then we often check the Harris County Sheriff's Office online public district and county criminal records inquiry to see if someone is in the local jails. That's actually a first stop you can go to, not only to know if someone may be in jail versus prison, but also if you have a missing loved one who perhaps has some past history of run-ins with law enforcement.
Excellent. Do you have anything to add there, Rania?
Well, I'll tell you, when you speak of crime generally, and we get this question a lot, it's very, very hard to pull data. Law enforcement agencies use different terms, they use different time periods, they pull from different resources, and us as an organization found it really difficult to just say, well, where are we as of June 1st in terms of this rate? So we actually launched our own research center. It's called the Glenda Gordy Research Center. We look at about 4 million data points a month from all the different corresponding law enforcement agencies in the area, making sure that we can put out as best we can a real-time look at changing crime rates. So if you go to Crime Stoppers website, crime-stoppers.org, and look at the research center, again, the Glenda Gordy Research Center, it really is supposed to be a hub for all crime data and present information in a user-friendly way, where you don't have to be a criminal justice expert to stand and look for certain terms. And that, to be honest, came out of a cry from the public, whereas maybe 10 years ago, the average Houstonian wasn't thinking about crime. 5 years ago, they started to say, what's going on? And now everybody seems to be really engaged. As the mayor says, it's one of the number one safety concerns of Houstonians, or one of the number one concerns of Houstonians is safety. We wanted the community to have a place to go to just get information.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. We've shared information on how you can get that data in the comments as well. So as we near the end, I'd love to hear some thoughts from both of you, maybe even advice. What are some things that we can all be doing to keep our communities safe? And Rania, you can start this one.
Be engaged. Be engaged in the real problems and in real solutions. crime is a very emotional topic, and there is a place for emotion with criminal activity. I mean, there's just no way around that. Be a victim of crime, you have every right to have every emotion under the sun. But when it comes to solutions, as a community, we've got to really engage in what is the problem? What are real solutions? And who do we properly bring them to? So, for example, we see it over and over again, outrage that the district attorney has released criminals from the courthouse. And we keep saying that's not even how the criminal justice system works. Or outrage that the mayor hasn't directed the judges to do X, Y, Z. And I said, that's not even how the mayor has nothing to do with the judges or the courthouse. And, there's so many things. I think we need to get back to sort of a civics 101, and Crime Stoppers, by the way, offers a free civics 101 class. Who is the mayor? What does the city council do? The commissioners, the county judge, what do they do? The police versus the sheriff, jail versus prison, all these things, the DA, their role. We think that's important. One, because an engaged, educated citizenry can now move from sort of shouting randomly to saying, wait a minute, let's look at real solutions for an issue we all care about and bring them respectfully to the people, saying we're willing to go hand in hand on this. We put everything down, we go hand in hand on this because we all care. Every single one of us cares about having a safe Houston. And I think that is sort of a universal truth for all of us.
Wonderful. Mel?
Absolutely. We do things at a more small level. And so for me, I'm just thinking in terms of, you see something, say something. Mm-hmm. If you don't know who to report something to, reach out to Crime Stoppers or Texas Center for the Missing. I know that Crime Stoppers and ourselves, we are connected within the city of Houston to know who to go to in each of these cases. We've had calls from investigators just trying to find a safe harbor for domestic violence family, not because that's a missing persons case, but they know we're connected within the city of Houston with a nonprofit sector. Follow both Crime Stoppers and Texas Center for the Missing across the board on whichever your social media platform is. There are safety tips to gain there. And also, host a lunch and learn at your business, whether it's from Texas Center for the Missing. We have a laundry list of safety topics. I know Crime Stoppers does it well as well. Educate yourself on whatever the topic is that is front of mind for your different populations and stakeholders, whether it's in your professional life or your personal life. And then also, I forgot to mention this earlier, if you just having a Ring doorbell has solved crime in my neighborhood. If you do have someone on the autism spectrum or battling dementia, if they leave your home, it gives a direction to start looking. It's a very simple concept, but it can really help solve at that smaller level.
Wonderful. Well, I would love to hear just final thoughts from both of you. Is there anything else that you want to share with our audience today? And we can start with you, Mel.
First, I just really want to invite anyone who knows anyone searching for a missing person, whether it's been a week, a day, an hour, or 48 years. We have an annual event called Missing in Southeast Texas Day. It's on April 27th, and it's a one-stop shop. You can have your DNA swabbed. You can report your loved one missing. You can have an age progression image provided by a sketch artist. There's a support group. You can just get really tapped into all the resources that are there, because missing persons, especially a long-term missing persons case, it's a small group of people that have been through a lot, and it's a really great way to get engaged. And if you want to volunteer at that, you can as well. Learn more about Texas Center for the Missing at centerforthemissing.org. I've already mentioned our social media platforms. And if you do have a loved one on the autism spectrum or battling dementia, get that missing persons response plan in place, get that diagnosis printed out, and let us know if we can help you in any way.
Excellent. Thank you. Rania?
First, Christine, I want to thank you so much for having us. It's always a pleasure being with you. And Mel, we love everything you guys do. It's just so critically important. Get the calls from the parents, whether it's an elderly parent or a child that's gone missing, and there's nothing more gut-wrenching than the sound of the voice of somebody calling for a missing loved one. So thank you for what you do. Crime Stoppers, we just want community engaged. Follow us on our social media. Share the information. I cannot tell you how much just simply sharing information does for a whole host of reasons. So I'll leave it at that. We appreciate everybody's support. We are a nonprofit and we love to engage with the community.
Well, thank you so much again to both of you for your time. I just wanted to share a quick comment from Deborah. She said, such powerful information. Thank you so much for this conversation and everything you do for our community. And I could not agree more. So again, thank you to both of you for your time today and all of the wonderful information you shared. And we did share several links in the comments. So if you want to learn more about anything that was shared today, please take a look at those comments. Click those links and go find those resources and information. Before we go, I do want to share that our next HAR community conversations will take place on Thursday, May 9th at 12 p.m. We will be joined by Jesse Thompson, who's with the Federal Reserve, and he's going to discuss mortgage interest rates. So please save the date, and we will see you then. Until then, have a great week, everyone. Thank you again to Mel and Rania. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Christina. Appreciate it.